Tatsalach oe kaloma, liloitza. Good afternoon and welcome to the Loft Hour, a new series to welcome our new arts faculty to campus with food and conversation, and also a really great groove over here, but maybe we'll cut that in a second. My name is Beth Piatote, and I'm the director of the Arts Research Center. I do, again, want to acknowledge Indira Allegra and their incredible contributions to the Arts Research Center in the past year that they've been here. The name of this program, the Loft Hour, came from Indira as we were sitting around trying to figure out what do we want to call this thing. So thank you. Your legacy will live on in so many ways. So thank you. Because this is an exciting new series and we do intend to continue it. We have more programs coming in the spring, and we hope every year we'll have an opportunity to sit together, to feast, to have some food, to have some great conversation, and then when the hour's up, go back to class. But, you know, newly invigorated by the conversations that we have and the food that we share. So I'm going to briefly introduce our speakers today and then turn it over to our moderator, Angela Marino. So today we'll be hearing from Marié Abe, a scholar of music and sound with ongoing ethnographic commitments in Japan, Okinawa, Ethiopia, and the US. Broadly speaking, her research explores the political and affective affordances of musical sounds in contexts ranging from everyday life to social movements, primarily in contemporary Japan. Her scholarship is driven by her interest in exploring how auditory culture produces social space and how sound's materiality and ephemerality are entangled with affect and sociality. In other words, she investigates how the culturally particular ways in which people listen to and make musical sounds elucidate the relationship between power, human difference, and understandings of space. Prior to joining the Berkeley faculty this year, Marié taught at Boston University and Harvard University. She has held fellowships at the Reischauer Center for Japanese Studies at Harvard and the Newhouse Center for the Humanities at Wesley College, and the International Research Center for Japanese Studies in Kyoto, Japan. We'll also be getting to know Luanne Redeye. Luanne is a portrait and figurative artist working at the intersection of autobiography and community. And in case you haven't put this all together, the Loft Hour flyers and beautiful bookmarks feature Luanne's beautiful artwork. Born in Jamestown, New York, Luanne grew up on the Allegheny Indian Reservation in Western New York. It's from here where she draws her connections to land, kinship, and culture in her artwork, which gives her pieces a strong personal and emotional component. Whether her art touches on the Native experience, identity, or resiliency, Luanne's work is always created through a Native lens, sharing her experiences, knowledge, and perspective of navigating a modern world as a Native woman. An enrolled member of the Seneca Nation of Indians and Hawk Clan, Luanne received her MFA in painting and drawing at the University of New Mexico. Her current art practice involves working across the mediums of painting, drawing, print, beadwork, and textile. Luanne has exhibited widely, including Kent State University, University at Buffalo, Idlewild Arts in Idlewild, California, Museum of Contemporary Native Arts in Santa Fe, 516 Arts in Albuquerque, Rainmaker Gallery in Bristol, UK, and the MEAM in Barcelona, Spain, among others. She's been supported by various residencies, including the Truth and Reconciliation residency at the Santa Fe Art Institute and the Constance Saltonstall residency in Ithaca, New York. Our moderator today is Angela Marino, author of Populism and Performance in the Bolivarian Revolution. Sorry. Okay, thank you. Co-editor of Festive Devils in the Americas, and is published in the Latin America Theater Review, Harvard Revista, Hemisférica Journal of Hemispheric Institute and Performance and Politics, and Cultural Anthropology. Angela works as affiliate faculty with the Latinx Research Center and is advisor to the Teatro Lab Project, an ensemble course of community-engaged popular theater. So please join me in welcoming this incredible panel today. And please be sure to eat, including cake.
They're on. Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. How's everybody doing? Everybody got some food. I am here in some ways to casualize. That's what I've been told. Keep this in a casual mode so that we're conversational, that we are inviting for each other, for this work. And also, I'm thinking about what a really, truly beautiful, formal occasion, in a sense, that this is, to be able to invite new faculty here, to be able to create community together here, and to be able to extend really our warmest welcome to the UC Berkeley community and to the many pockets in which we do our work. I really want to thank Beth, Lori. This is a wonderful occasion, and to be able to get to know both of your work better has been something illuminating for all of our work as we move forward. So, like Beth said, and like I claim, my name is Angela Marino. I have many names as well. Chasara is one of my names. I was born in South Minneapolis. I'm an activist and artist. The second part of my life was actually in New Mexico, where I directed a festival. It was called La Voz Festival of the Americas, and we had Erica Lord's work there, Sharon Mitsui of the Dene Nation, and it was right when IA was nascent, and we were really, that was a part of our generation. I feel like coming from, from New Mexico, and grad students working with Kim Tallbear here at the UC Berkeley campus have been very influential for the work that we've carried forward. Many of them, just thinking of Marcelo Garza, calling him to the room, and thinking of course, Corinne Gould. And so the spirit of real acknowledgement, in a sense, the regional connections that can be drawn, also through community, into thinking of what it is to be as a visitor here and to exchange with other visitors here, and to recognize the increasing importance of an international acknowledgement. So I guess I'm leading here to what I want to bring forward, which is, Abe Yala is the term that we use to talk about the Panama Kuna language position of Abe Yala, two lands that flourish in the south and in the north. And one of the signs that we've carried has been Abe Yala, upholding land back, the Shumi tax, and also the fullest expression of grief and compassion and outrage that is happening to sisters and brothers in Gaza. And so from Abe Yala to Palestine, free the land from colonial violence, from surveillance, dispossession, pray for a stop to the bombing, for the return of stolen lands, for peace that is eternal from the root of justice, and for us here that we may strengthen our own work against genocide, not only here, everywhere on the earth. So that's one thought to bring forward. So with that, we also want to acknowledge that today is a walkout day that students have called. So if people do feel called at the 12:30 hour that they may want to leave, we are not going to be policing that. We want to feel that that's open. We also feel a really strong sense of continuity, and knowing that the Palestinian student group would want this group to feel that continuance. And so we'll continue the program and to invite people afterwards with me, if you choose. I speak for myself, but for all others, if you may want to, I will be walking that way. And so with that, and with true excitement for this incredible work that you are doing, I will pass it over. Would either one of you like to start with bringing us to your work and incredible community you're bringing? Yeah.
Go first. I mean, the computer's set up. I think mine's on there.
Okay. Thank you.
Here. Sorry, I'm really blind. I can't need it brighter. There we go. coming? Can I move this? Can you hear me? I hope that's good. Okay, I know it's a small room, but I also talk really low, so I'll project. So hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. Before I talk about my work, oh, that's a great idea. I'll do that too when Mari's showing her work. So before talking about my work, I wanted to take a moment to introduce you to my grandmother, Sadie. So I was raised by my grandmother, actually, and some of my most sacred time was spent with her. And it was through her that I learned to be respectful and thoughtful and caring. And we would cook together and watch daytime television together. And as a teenager, I was her official like hairdresser. I would often color her hair in the kitchen sink. And I really appreciated the moments that she allowed me to pause, that she gave me moments to take mental breaks. And so I just want to bring that gratitude into my presentation, because I wouldn't be able to, have these conversations with you if it weren't for her. And I consider, I'm here because of her, and my artwork is for her. So I always like to take a moment anytime I talk about my work in a public setting, a presentation like this, to acknowledge her and bring her forward. And now into the work. It was so hard to choose what to show, but I decided to bring a few things out that I haven't yet added to any social media or onto my website, except for this. This is up right now, just for context of what my work is about. So I'm primarily a figurative artist, like Beth mentioned, and again, you might hear me repeat some of the things that she mentioned from my artist statement, but I'm doing that just to reinforce. Sorry, the. Okay, is that helping now? I think that stopped. Okay, I'm doing that just to reinforce. It's still going. The context of my work. So again, my practice draws connections to kinship and culture, and by extension, connections to land and place. My culture is very connected to this specific place in New York State. And my portraits do intersect autobiography and community. So even though I'm not portrayed in my work physically, you don't see my self-portrait within it, I feel very present within it because of my relationship to the people that I am depicting, and also and they feel very autobiographical because of that very specific lens of, through my perspective of being a Native woman and just simply being in this world, like how I navigate the world influences my work a lot. And the portraits that I create are of people that I know in their everyday life. So you'll see a lot of my family and friends and community members in my work. So I feel very strong personal and emotional connection to my paintings. And when I'm working with the images and the paintings that I create, I look to the relationships that we hold with each other, and often share the stories of my family by weaving together these personal narratives of home and identity. And the paintings are from my gaze, they're from my perspective, and so the surface really becomes this window into these familiar surroundings, of the figures of their everyday life. And the works are visual narratives of just their complex identities, I think really expressing what it means to be indigenous today. And so I consider paint and portraiture as a form of self-determination, so claiming portraiture for Indigenous identities. And so this is a painting of my Uncle Steve, who I've created his portrait many times in many different mediums. So if any of you have heard me speak about his work before, you know this. So I grew up in a family full of women. And for my cousins and I, Uncle Steve was our father figure. And so we've always gravitated towards him. And whenever I visit home, when I go back to New York, he's one of the first people that I see. And in painting his portrait, or in the other portraits that I paint, like of my aunts or of my cousins, I come back to these memories that I have about him or of them. And I think of our relationships to each other. And that's what I really love about portraiture. For me, it's like storytelling, or it's like a conversation. And I get to spend time with him or time with the others that I paint. And I really enjoy painting these moments, of the everyday or of the familiar. And my practice does involve working in other mediums. So as mentioned, like painting, of course, but print and beadwork and textile. And there are works where I've incorporated Seneca-style beadwork into my art. So that means just specific designs and beading style from my specific culture. So the designs themselves, carry a symbolism and meaning within Haudenosaunee communities. And so I bring these designs into my work because my art isn't only about representation, it's about accessibility through visual language. And so this is a painting of my friend Lily, and the designs in the painting are specific to her as a beadwork artist. And so I referenced the shapes actually from a pair of earrings that she gifted to me. And as my newest painting, because I finished this in the summer just before I moved here, I'm bringing what I do in my print work, which is very graphic and layered from screen printing, and I applied it to this painting. And I have more paintings planned with this approach, which I'm very excited about, because this painting really pushed me to work outside of my usual techniques. I consider it loose. Some other people do not, but for me it was. When you see it in person, it is. As an extension of my painting, I also have a continuing series of work that combines my personal story, my family's story, our relationship to each other, and our relationship to my grandmother's house. I've titled this series the Frame Series. It's not very exciting, but that's what I've titled it. And each frame represents a different family member and then my relationship to them. And currently there are 7 people represented with each frame. So there's one for my biological mother, one for my grandmother, one for myself, one for my first son, one for my biological father, there's one for my aunt, and one for my cousins. And this is the frame that's for my aunt, Becky. And I made it actually early into quarantine in April 2020. And during this time I started, or the frame series in general came about because I really started thinking about how creation can be a form of healing. And I got into it even more during this time with quarantine. And although I didn't become physically sick during the early time of quarantine of COVID, there was still the stress and the emotional weight of, managing to teach in person and then teaching online, and had to teach in hybrid and still trying to make artwork. And then I had a kindergartner, first grader that I was having to homeschool, and then being a support to my students, and just navigating the world in general. So there was just a lot happening. And, as humans, there's a lot that we can carry, but at what point does it become too heavy? And does it become so overwhelming that we get lost behind it? And my Aunt Becky always came forward in my mind when I was thinking of these questions. She's the oldest of her sisters, so of my aunts, and she takes on a lot of the grief and worry of her younger siblings and of her nieces. And so because she carries a lot with her, I tell her it's okay to say no, but she doesn't. So I created this frame for her, and I intentionally made the shape of it with these like rounded edges at the top to look like shoulders, and then it concentrated the beadwork at the top as well. And so Haudenosaunee beadwork is raised, it's three-dimensional, like it sticks out kind of far. And if you build it up, it can get really heavy. So I wanted this work to have like the visual weight at the top to appear heavy, but also to be physically heavy. If you hold it, it's like really heavy as well. And I meant to bring this with me, and I totally forgot in my rush to come down here. And so I didn't include the larger image, but I wanted to include this detail of it so that you could see her portrait that I placed inside of it. So I hid her image behind the beadwork just to help reinforce this overwhelming sense of just getting lost behind her underneath this emotional weight. So you could only see it if you pull back the beadwork, otherwise it's meant to be hidden behind it. And just trying to be conscious of time, I didn't want to go too many images. This is my final one. So as my final image, I wanted to show part of my most recent exploration. And I feel a lot of my work deals with care and maintenance because I work a lot with images of my family. I have photographs that I've documented, but I also have my grandmother's photos that were passed down to me, or photos from my aunts that were gifted to me. And so I've been thinking more about how my work, but especially how my personal archive can be a form of care and maintenance. So like care of relationship or maintenance of culture. So I've been working with family photographs in different materials, such as like photo transfers, or in this image, cyanotype. And I specifically want them to be on paper and fabric so that I can adorn them with beadwork. And that, for me, the beadwork is part of that care. And so that's it. Thank you.
All right. There's supposed to be nothing there, don't worry. Thank you, Luanne. That was such a beautiful, inspiring presentation. We had a chance to have coffee together to prepare our conversation yesterday, and hearing you and seeing your artwork really grounded what we talked about. So looking forward to teasing out some themes together. Just want to introduce myself and what I do really briefly before I get into what I do. Let me just have, be mindful of time. Okay, cool. So I'm Marié Abe. I'm an ethnomusicologist, which means that I study, different ways of understanding human difference and sameness through music, in a way, right? And I'm trained in cultural anthropology and cultural geography. And what I do, my methodology, first and foremost, is ethnography, which means, to me, knowledge production based on long-term ethical commitment to fostering sustained relationships with people and their ecologies. And I'm also a practicing artist. I'm a musician. I started playing the piano when I was 3, one of those classically trained Japanese Yamaha kids. But then when I got to grad school, I converted to the accordion for many reasons that I can get into later. And then it actually happened here. I did my PhD degree at Berkeley. And so that's been keeping me busy playing in different kinds of bands, from lo-fi indie pop to experimental to Ethiopian jazz. And up until really this moment, including my past work, my most recent work, I kind of kept those lives separate. But today I want to, especially after talking to Luanne, I kind of wanted to reflect on where creative practice and artistic practice intersects with my scholarly work and my new research that I'm still in the middle of at a very beginning stage. It kind of emerged from an unexpected encounter or convergence between my life as a accordionist, gigging musician, and as an ethnomusicologist. So I kind of want to take you through my thinking process. So in the subcultural scenes of world music and African pop music aficionados in Tokyo, it's kind of a common knowledge that Ethiopian pop music from the 70s sounds a lot like enka, which is the 1950s pop music from Japan. And then I experienced this firsthand while performing music with one of the bands that kept me busy. This is a Boston-based Ethiopian groove collective called Debo Band. And when I started playing with them over 10 years ago, some repertoire in our, some songs in our repertoire came so easy to my ears and my hands. And I'm like, why does this feel so easy to me? And I realized this sounds like the songs that my grandpa used to listen to all the time. This kind of nostalgic pop music. And it wasn't just me when I play our recordings or older recordings to my friends and family. They have this bewildered look and they're like, can't believe it's not Japanese. And it happens conversely also when I play Japanese pop music in this genre called enka to Ethiopian musicians that I toured with. They would kind of hum along and smile and recognize the similarity. So I want to share with you quick clips to give you an idea of what that might sound like. So first I'll play an Ethiopian song. And then here's a Japanese one. So I hope some of you recognized the similarity. So I wanted to, this kept coming up so many times that this became a set of questions for me. And I wanted to pause on the moment of surprise, a sense of disorientation, and there's also always a palpable sense of pleasure that begins with the moment of misrecognition when a listener hears somebody else's music as their own, or perhaps hear themselves in another music. So what does it mean to hear yourself in somebody else's music? And how do we understand what sound can do? Because that's what I'm interested in, right? When it's misheard or heard as something else, or heard when it's not even a thing. And also what kind of affinities can emerge from these moments of hearing ourselves in others. So this is the kind of questions that motivated me to do a beginning stage of research. So first, it led me to do some archival work, which then led me to uncover some of the overlooked and lesser-known long history of encounter and exchange between Ethiopia and Japan, the only two colored nations that had defeated white nations, right? In 1896 in the Battle of Adwa against Italy for Ethiopia, and then Japan against Russia in 1905. Also two nations known for long imperial lineages. And I even found out that there was actually a arranged marriage between the royal members of these two countries that got botched by European nations in the US. So in a way, doing this kind of groundwork allowed me to historicize East Asia ties that are often subsumed in the narrative of modern global history, and reorient the narrative of global circulation that happens to be most predominantly Anglophone world-centric, especially when you're thinking about musical circulation. I also then went to Ethiopia to do some preliminary research. And when I get there and tell people what I'm there for, right, I'm kind of interested in this musical affinity between the two countries, people always bring this singer up, and his song, Tila Hungesese, is a beloved national musical hero. And then there's a song called Japan Wodije, which means I fell in love with a Japanese woman. And it's about a man who did exactly that. And it goes like this.
ሩቅ ምስራቅ ሳለ ጃፓኗን ወድጄ ትዝ ትለኛለች በፍቅሯ ነድጄ
In the interest of time, I'll cut it there. And so that led me, long story short, to meet these elders at the Korean War Memorial Museum. And I talked to them about their experiences serving in Korean War, because Haile Selassie sent them to Ethiopian soldiers to fight along the NATO during the Korean War. And some of them ended up going to Japan during R&R. And lo and behold, I hit the ethnographic gold mine on day 3, I think, upon arrival in Ethiopia. This gentleman to my right happens to be the guy who wrote the song. And it was based on his real story of falling in love with a Japanese woman who actually was a sex worker. So getting to know how these people came in contact with Japanese popular music of the time also was in the shadow of structured gendered violence, right, as part of the military, US military imperialism. So he, shared with me the photo that he still was carrying with him, and he said his wife is cool with it. And he said that, and he even sang for me the melody himself, but I cut the video. He's cute. Anyway, and so I'm gonna, and this kind of launched into this really fascinating feedback loop or spiraling discovery of echoing moments of recognition and misrecognition and circulations in context, out of context. And I can get into this for hours and hours, but it, in the end, led to me being implicated in this ongoing musical hearing themselves as loop, in that I then brought back this discovery, presented it in Japan, which then led some of the Japanese musicians and cultural practitioners to create mashup projects with Ethiopian musicians and Japanese musicians today. And they started doing this during COVID. So it started out as a video project, and now they're traveling back and forth and doing this. So me being curious and talking about these musical affinities kept kind of feeding into what is actually happening in other people's creative lives, which to me becomes a little bit of a quagmire as an ethnographer. Like, how do I talk about that? And I'm happy to show the video if there is time. But I just want to end with a couple things. I'm in jargony way, I'm interested in the poetics of mishearing or hearing as. So I'm less interested in thinking about or explanatory logic of how these things happened and what history really made it happen. You know, it's important to think about what those things prepared, the conditions, right, or possibilities for those mishearings to happen. But I'm more interested in these unexpected, generative, creative, poetic ways in which people's creative hearing and musicking creates different kinds of world and imaginings and understanding the world and being in the world. And then in turn, what kinds of connections and affinities can emerge from these imaginaries. So those are the kind of things that I'm interested in exploring. Thank you.
Thank you. This is really amazing, these two presentations. Thank you so much for bringing this forward. And I guess I could start out with one question, but I'm really interested because the room is so full of incredible people who I know all have thoughts, ideas, who are part of this community, who are wanting to engage. I'm going to just keep one question right now for the two. Being a performance studies scholars and just thinking about the body, and you're talking about tactile and tactility and what weight is and what it means to hold and to touch and to do the beadwork. And I'm thinking of your work that's sonic or the aural, and in a sense, kind of in a weaving, you've described different designs, different ways that poetic takes form. And I'm just curious if you were to think together, what ways does that carry something for you through the aural and through the tactile as different modes of organizing, of creating, of, just kind of let it be there as a prompt. I wonder if you want to speak to that for each other.
The oral as a mode of organizing, connecting.
Yeah,
Weaving,
modality,
modality.
design. How do you define it? That poetics. Could you speak more on that?
Yeah, I think that, I think it's often a lot of like hip hop often is a perfect example to think about how, fragmented, techniques like sampling and sort of subverting ways of using technologies can then create this globally circulating form that can connect, issues and struggles across different places. But for me, this experience kind of posed a different way of listening to music. It's not about really knowing the references or reading the meanings through the references, and then it's also not so much about the textual, it's not about lyrics. And there's something in the act of hearing before it becomes rendered as meaning, in a really visceral affective way, it does something, and then it recalls your own memories. And so it's a little bit, that's why I don't want to pathologize mishearing, because that sounds like it presumes a way of correctly hearing. But without that, what multiple ways of hearing the same sound can there be? Because these people are listening to the same track, but imagining and connecting themselves with different groups of people. So I'm sort of interested in that potential. Does that make sense? It's a little abstract.
Hello. Okay. In thinking about the photographs that I talked about at the last slide, for those I have the original photographs. So I was thinking like someone might ask, like, why don't I just bead on the originals or reprint those as photos and print and photo and bead on those? But in thinking about material, like there's something about, like, for me, that I just really like getting my hands in feeling material, like working with the cyanotype or working with acrylic mediums, like doing the photo transfers. Like there's just that physicality of it that I really enjoy, that I feel brings an extra layer to the work, and a translucency to the images that just straight image on photographic paper doesn't quite have, for me at least. And then for adding beadwork to some of my artwork, like to the frames or to the photos, yeah, part of that is like physical, to be metaphorical for like this emotional weight, and then part of it is identity expression too, because it is part of my culture, and then to signal to others who are Native as well to read that identity within it too.
There's so much connection that's happening. There's so much connection to different conversation, people, relationships. And it's something that is coming forward from both of the work through these different media, in a sense. And I really, really appreciate that. And yeah,
Can
did
I
you want to
just-
share? Yeah.
Yes, in yesterday's conversation, Luanne said this beautiful thing where even though these are portraiture of her family members, for the viewers, they can also be their family members, or they can imagine, or right. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the way in which she also imagined the viewer's experience as familial, it's not just her family members, struck me as also the visual, but also, sensorial ways in which art can provoke us to be imaginative in thinking, what is our family? What kind of family or alliance or community that gets created? So to me, that was such a beautiful, statement.
Right on. Yeah. Do a thought. I'd love to open it up. How do y'all feel about that? To open it up to some questions. There are some familiar faces in the room. I can see Talia. I see you. Hello. There are some faces here that I don't know you, but I would really invite you to introduce yourselves, to make yourselves known here. Let us know kind of what affiliation that you're coming from, the work that you might be engaged in doing, and any questions that you might have. And we could just open this up for a conversation, because this really is an opportunity for us to all get to know each other. And this is about creating community in this space, in the ARC space. So with that, is there anyone who has something that they might like to ask or share about your work?
I just make cups, but I was curious, you're talking about the music and the similar sounds the music has, and kind of not so interested in the text or the lyrics, but I wondered if there was overlap also in the, if the music and if the lyrics had like similar themes also, like,
Yeah, I think, do you guys know the Jimi Hendrix song, the "Excuse me while I kiss this guy" is often heard as "While I kiss this guy," right? That's like a classic. There's so many. There's actually an amazing website that has all this misheard lyrics. And that can be mostly within English language, but it can happen translinguistically. And I think lyrics can, this kind of mishearing work that also is interesting. But to me, what felt more capacious, I think, was the non-linguistic. And it's in the timbre, it's in the sensibilities, the certain kinds of arrangements. Those felt a lot, it's a lot it leaves more room for the poetic, for the imagination, because you're not restricted to that. But I think there's definitely there's a lot to be talked about. I think there's a couple of interesting articles about mondegreen or fanutin. Those are both two terms to talk about these echoic space of how mishearing can generate new meanings.
We might have a chance for one more question. Yeah.
If someone has a question, they should. No, you should take it. Go. We can go on 2 questions.
2 questions.
I'll do a quick question. This was great. It was so great to hear you both speak, having read your work and knowing your work a bit. So I'm interested in how these kind of personal inheritances inform your academic work. And I wonder if really in a kind of informal way, you would be open to reflecting a little bit on how inheritance becomes an occasion for inquiry or creativity and remaking.
There's I feel like sometimes it can be tough, because then I wonder, like, what things do I bring forward in that inheritance? Like, what do I want to speak about? And so I am very conscious of, the images that I paint and some of the things that I share, and where it influences my academic research is that, for me, I feel like part of that is the fact that I am a Native woman in academia. And so I think about those relationships of, like, what it kind of means to navigate those spaces, and how my, I guess, story is kind of specific and perhaps just hasn't been heard or seen. And while I want it to be, I'm still unsure of how do I do that, but I found how I've been able to approach things is thinking more on the level of that that you brought up, with making or touching on things that can be more universal, like what is family, and so while I paint images of my Uncle Steve and I share stories about him, so like we all could have like a crack up uncle, who's like we go to, or we could all have like a grandmother that's like really loving that we care for, or aunts that like to gossip but say they don't, sort of thing. So like it's those sorts of things. So I kind of bring it into the realm of like, yeah, these are specific to me as in like the Native experience of where I'm from, but I feel like there's maybe some bigger generalities I think others could still relate to, and so those are the things I try to find commonalities on and go into. I guess hopefully that answers your question.
I think, is it on? So I was born and raised in Tokyo until I was 15, and I moved to Germany, where I learned English in an international high school, and then I came to the US for college and graduate education. And so I think moving around got me thinking about, first, music as a way of sort of thinking across spaces. It circulates, and it's permeable, right? And so my earlier thinking came from my upbringing, for sure. And I also was surprised by how I ended up choosing my first book subject that my uncle and my grandparents really used to enjoy, but I used to kind of look down upon. And then as I grow older, I think these ways of connecting to my home country through their memories, my memories of them, became real. And this time, though, my interest shifted from sound as this circulatory medium to hearing as a practice in itself, because I, as a perennial ESL, I speak with an American accent, but I'm slow reader. I need an editor for my writing. I am forever an ESL, and I mishear a lot also. When I play telephone with friends, I'm often called the funk box because I always mishear things. Whenever something comes out wrong, I am the one. And so I think my interest in mishearing as a sort of generative way of thinking about sound as a way of holding multiple ways of sensing the world and understanding the world and mishearing, being in the world, came from that inheritance as well, I think.
I'm not sure that we have time. I think we're going to need to end right now. But I just want to say once again, the conversation continues. So as we are moving through the room, we can walk together, and I invite these conversations to happen, to continue on. You have a home here at here I'm saying Latinx Research Center, the Arts Research Center, also at the Latinx Research Center, also at many of the other spaces. Does anyone want to shout out a space in the campus where you're finding that these conversations are happening before we go? Just kind of, I'd invite that. Then let that happen as we walk, and we can continue to do that. And thanks again, Lori. Thanks again, Beth. Thank you, Indira. And thank you to our amazing artists that are here today. So Marié Abe Luanne Redeye. Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm not sure if these are still on. Again, thank you. Please grab some food as you're walking. There's also the cake to say thank you. And